Hi, Chris. We can just start off with an introduction for our audience on you and who you are as a person and as a leader. So, if you could just give your name, role, brief insight into your career journey, and kind of what you're doing now at Plotly.
No, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Melissa. So I'm Chris Honda. I am currently building up the security risk and compliance function here at Plotly, like you mentioned. I've been here about 3 months. I'd have to go back and do the actual counting, but that feels like roughly the right number. And we're starting from the ground up and really just trying to build everything. I'm coming here from Listic, which is a local company here in Utah. I've been there about 6 years, spent a little bit of time there as a software engineer, and kind of fell very serendipitously into the security and the compliance world. So, my first foray was saying, hey, I'm happy to do security things. I was not really a great engineer. I'm not afraid to put that out. I'm not a good engineer, but I was always saying, hey, I'm willing to try and do what I can. And we got to the point about 6 months in where the company needed SOC 2, and I said, well, I don't know anything about that, but you asked, so I'm happy to give it a try, and it's just kind of been history since then. I feel very lucky to have fallen into the security and the compliance world because I've tried a bunch of different things. I've done sales, I've done marketing, I've done education, done all sorts of different things, and this feels like a good place to be. I like breaking things so I could fix them instead of I guess the opposite. So
Yeah.
Place to be, and I'm really happy to help build things that help keep people safe.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I feel like most of the people I talk to enter security almost on accident, I like to say. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you think of history and how tech has evolved, security and making it as much of a priority as it is today is somewhat new. And I mean, new being like the last 30 years. But I feel like most of the leaders I talk to, they never really intended to end up where they are. And like you said, it's the similar sentiment of like, I'm so happy I'm here, but it kind of was a happy accident of where their career led them. So I think beautiful segue into our first question of, thinking about when you first entered the cyber realm and, when you were just starting out and what the standard was for security leadership and programs and perception of, what the cyber program does and aims to do. If you were to think about back then when you first joined versus now and rewrite the security leader job description, what responsibilities and maybe core functions do you think look a little bit different today than they previously did, especially with AI in the mix and kind of all these new innovations we're seeing pop up?
I think that's a good question. I think we're still figuring it out to a large extent, right? Especially, as you said, with AI. There's plenty of healthy disagreement and maybe a little bit of not so healthy disagreement as well. I think that a lot of what I would hope to see, and I see the starts of it and a lot of conversation around it, is that security is no longer we're just get to be in our corner office or in the basement, just get to do our thing. I think that one of the key things that we should expect from our security leaders is that they can work with the rest of the business. And I don't just mean engineering, IT. I mean, can you talk with marketing? Can you talk with sales? Can you talk with the rest of the leadership team?
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we do isn't just, hey, go patch this, right? It's not just the patching. It's not just make sure the firewall's up and running. It's, well, what are our customers expecting? How are people expecting us to handle their data, right? Because that's going to vary from industry to industry, from company to company. And if we don't understand how that works, how that looks at our companies, we're not in a really good position to help where we probably should be in the best position to help out of anyone else in the org. So, I mean, being right, we don't have to be marketing or sales experts. We don't have to be pros in operations, but it does help, right? I think the mentality of, well, security is my job, compliance and risk and privacy are my job, so that's all I'm going to focus on, is really myopic, and it stunts us from us being able to deliver the value that I think we want to, right? Like you were saying, a lot of people fall in here by accident. They've had a bunch of different roles, and by saying, hey, I'm finally at security and this is what I want to do, and then forgetting where we came from, especially in those situations. I think we're leaving a lot off the table that we should be bringing there. So yeah, not being willing, but actually doing the work to talk with other people, figure out how to solve their problems, which means learning their language. I'm big on language.
Yeah.
So it's both metaphorically and literally being able to understand what people want, what they mean, what's important to them is really critical.
Yeah, no, and I think thinking of the cybersecurity, aspect and program of a business, it's like you said, it's not as siloed as it once was. You need to have that connection with all the other departments because you're protecting the business, and the business is made up of people in their various roles, all doing something to achieve the main goal. So, it makes so much sense when you say it, but I feel like a lot of people do overlook that aspect of it. It's about like helping everyone make the best impact that they can. And I think talking about AI, it kind of has been thrown into every aspect of the business, and like you said, it's still being figured out. So I guess my question for you is, where are you seeing AI make the biggest measurable impact on security operations, or even just, how you're doing your job day to day? And what lessons have you learned from maybe attempts that didn't work, or maybe what are some things or approaches that you're currently learning that are good, and you've seen work well?
Well, certainly, and this is where very luckily, having changed companies around the time that I did, I've seen a couple of different approaches firsthand.
Yeah.
On top of working with others in the industry, other friends, other companies, and acquaintances. And it's really diverse. It's really different, because what the company needs and what the company looks like, what their goals are, I guess maybe some more of the more micro level goals really vary.
Yeah.
I've coming from Wistic and seeing how just out of necessity we needed a lot of efficiency, so there was a lot more reliance on AI, and it wasn't so much about, well, if it works, let's maybe feel it out, as we don't have budget for people.
Yeah.
And a lot of the more traditional tools that normally come with a very strong budget, there's some things that necessitated, we got to get creative. Let's see what we can do with AI.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of great things that came from that, because when you have to be creative, you find ways to be creative.
Yeah.
And now, and that's in contrast to other experiences that I've had. So for example, here at Plotly, we're still figuring out from a governance perspective, what are we okay with?
Yeah.
We're also at a point where people have, it's really interesting. You see some of these studies coming out where a lot of developers, some of these, right, they're small scale studies, but I think that there's still something to it, where the developers and engineers will say, hey, like, this is nice because it lets me think about other problems, but in terms of actual velocity, it doesn't really help me. And the studies suggest that over-reliance on these tools actually slow down product development to a small degree, or at least a small degree, I should say. And I think that the engineers here have recognized that. It doesn't mean they don't use it. It just means that they use it a little more selectively.
Yeah.
And from a security perspective, I've kind of seen the same thing. So, different situations, different companies, different needs. I've found that the common threads are, I can reliably use a lot of AI things to help offload the things that are just, I guess, the manual, the busy work, things that aren't unimportant, right?
Yeah.
They're important, they need to be done, and they provide impact, but they don't require me to sit and figure and tinker and troubleshoot and debug, and I guess, for lack of better words, engineer a good solid solution. It's just something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that's where we essentially use it as a time-saving solution, as long as the efficacy is still good enough. And then that way, the problems that need human attention get the human attention that they need. So that's kind of the balance that I've struck right now. I think one day, especially like as we're figuring out more what we want from an AI perspective, right? The way that I've been pitching it for a little bit now is, the AI should be the right tool for the job that we're looking to solve. So just because it solves problems doesn't mean we should use it to solve every problem, right?
Yeah.
If we candidate for an AI, a specific tool that happens to have AI in it, then let's consider using it. So that's the position that we're in right now, and we found it to be working really well. And thankfully management has been really supportive about that, because I mean there's lots of concerns in terms of how we're going to use it safely, how are we going to protect our customers with it, which is fantastic that I don't have to leave those conversations.
Yeah.
That's what our internal staff are saying. So being able to bring that in and say, hey, these are some ways that we can do this is really fantastic, because that means we get to do it close. I mean, I hesitate to say right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as right. Maybe best for us. We're doing things as best for us and our customers as I think we can, without rushing into a situation where we might have to tear it down, slow things down, and have to rebuild. We're looking to build things appropriately for our situation the first go around.
Yeah. And I think you said something that struck a chord, where you kind of can lean on AI to do maybe those more redundant or manual things that you don't really need the human element to. And so this segues us perfectly into what I wanted to talk about next, about, the human aspect of the leadership of security teams. And we've heard there's two different arguments, I think, to this. One is AI could potentially replace and assist a lot with more entry-level roles in cyber, think like analysts or just people starting out. And the argument is like, well, if AI is handling a lot of those tasks, these more entry-level people who one day will be the leaders of their organization, and future CISOs or whatever, aren't really getting the fundamentals they need, and are being faced with, oh my God, how am I going to solve this? Because AI can kind of help them out. And that's causing concern, because it's like, well, if you don't cut your teeth in this way and learn when you're at the bottom, how are you going to be prepared to be a security leader when you have lots of pressure, you have the board on your back, or you have a lot of other people on your team to worry about? So that's one thing. But then the other side of that argument is, well, it's actually good, because like you said, employees and security leaders, whether they're entry level or they're more seasoned, can focus on things that actually need their attention and need a human element and need human insight, while they have AI running in the background doing the more redundant manual things that I don't want to say are time wasters, but it certainly frees up the security leader to be like, oh, okay, I know that's getting handled. Let me allocate my time and attention to something that's more high impact. And so, long-winded way of setting up for, how do you think hiring needs and team structures are evolving with AI being so in the mix now? And what qualities and skill sets are becoming most critical and most valuable as security leaders are thinking about who they want to hire for their teams and who they're really looking for?
Well, those are really good questions, and at least for the second part, I'm not sure if I really have a great answer for it. But I mean, I'll take a step. So from the first perspective, from the first half of that, I think that, all right, because we're still figuring it out, we're still identifying what we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Meaning, right, like, so for example, I know that especially with a lot of the big summer conferences this year, the big talk was, we're gonna AI-ify your SOC, right?
Yeah.
So we're not gonna need SOC analysts.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yep.
And 5 years ago we heard something a little different. I mean, not AI specifically, but when compliance automation tools started coming out and getting really hot, and they were going to revolutionize away the GRC analyst, and you just need one engineer to do a little bit of tune-up.
Yep.
We're here.
Yeah.
I remember being really, really excited and also really scared when these kinds of tools started coming out, because I kind of like doing audits, maybe not manually, but I like that part of the work, the GRC part of the work. That's my bread and butter, because I get to talk with people. And I think we found over the last 5 or so years that that's not going to be the case. That wasn't the case, right? That the fear that we're not going to need GRC people anymore, or we're not going to need specialists that know how to talk with auditors, has largely gone away. And I think that we're going to see something similar here with AI. Could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot. I just hoping that I'm not wrong with this, at least not completely.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's going to be a lot of great things and expanded capabilities both for organizations and for people that have these tools and get really good at using them.
Yeah.
And we're going to find, I think and hope, that it's not so much that, oh, well, we don't need people now, or we don't need reasonably specialized people to handle and manage and tune and maintain these tools and these processes, but that it'll make these people better at doing so, so that the efficacy and the benefits that we get from those are better, right? So maybe we don't see a reduction in staff, but we do see a much stronger reduction in incidents and events and hopefully headlines in the news,
Yeah.
right? So I'm that's what I think is possible. How we get there, I have no idea, because that's largely contingent, A, on the products getting good enough for it to deliver that value, but then also B, companies and people being willing to adopt them, work with them, improve them, and make the situation better. So that's the first half. And then from the second question, the second part of that question about people and what people that are hiring are looking for, I think that it really is more of the same. I mean, the flavor might have changed a little bit, but in essence, we need people, right? There's certainly no small degree of technical skill and expertise and interest and curiosity that has been the hacker culture and security and software and hardware for the last however many decades. I think we certainly need that. I think we also need, it's not a nice to have. I think we really need people that are willing and somewhat skilled at working with people and are willing to continue doing so, because everything's so interconnected, right? I think 10, 15 years ago when cloud started becoming a big thing, and how that changed how we work with each other, and not just how we work with each other, but just how business was done. I think this is just another, maybe not an extension of that era, but it's a very similar occurrence where this is just going to change how we're working fundamentally, to some degree or another. And by saying that it's actually going to, I think it would be unwise to think that means that we're not going to work with each other more, that we're not going to work with each other more.
Yeah.
Being able to understand what people need and then how this technology is going to solve those problems, or how it can be fit, or what gaps are in the market, is really what's going to drive how people are going to do the business, what's going to pop up new in the industry, and how that's going to address the problems that we have. So being able to understand more than just, well, these are the ports, this is what's important from a security perspective, what does the company need? What are our customers asking for? What's going to make my coworkers' life easier on the other side of the cubicles? Because when you start taking that mindset, you start having that creativity, right? We talked about creativity coming out with a bunch of great things as a result. That's the kind of creativity that we need, is not just, oh, well, this isn't a security problem. This isn't a risk that I own. This isn't going to be a compliance issue. It's not a privacy thing that right? This is a legal privacy thing, not a security privacy or data protection privacy. I think that's a really limiting mindset, and looking for people that don't have that, or are willing to move beyond that and say, you know what, we need to expand and do more, or at least be able to help influence and support more to some extent, is going to be, those are going to be the teams that win.
Yeah, no, and I think, again, it speaks to that human element of the job. And also, I think when we were talking before about how cyber leaders and the people doing the work, it's not a siloed department anymore, where it's like you're just head in the computer and doing your job. Like, it is more, I think, industry-wide becoming known and perceived as a fundamental part of the business, yes, but also a social part of the business, because it does take a lot of that communication of knowing from all departments, like, what are we doing? What are we solving? How can we best serve you? And I think in terms of AI changing that, it's only becoming more important, because obviously you can have an AI solution, or you can have a program that can do a job. Like, it's robotic, it's automated, like, that's a process. But what about the people that are informing that process? What about the people that are writing that code? What about the people that are writing those policies? And it goes back to the human aspect of it. I think, segueing into our next question, when we talk about how people want to adopt these tools, boards and execs are super eager to leverage AI now. And a lot of this, I feel like, is maybe fear and needing to keep up with the Joneses of, like, oh, our competitor is doing this thing with AI, how do we do that too? Which is, I think, the wrong approach. Like, you should do it when it's purposeful for you and it makes a difference for you. But that is a lot what we're seeing, not just in cyber, but in every industry and company. But so talking about board pressure and people wanting to just implement AI and kind of innovate and be first adopters to that. Obviously, you still need guardrails and policies in place while you're innovating. So what approaches to governance and risk management have you seen that strike the right balance between speed and, oh, we're innovators, we're doing this, but also prioritizing that safety and control part of it as well?
That's a good question, and I lean more towards your opinion, where than the way that I say it is, you shouldn't be shoehorning AI into the solution if it doesn't fit, right?
Yeah.
If it's not the right solution for you, don't use it, right?
Yeah.
I do understand the fear, right? You look at the headlines, even like industries where you would suspect almost zero AI involvement, you're seeing a lot of chatter about how it's going to replace jobs. Is the biggest first part, right? And I don't blame people for having that fear, because, right, we've seen that thing with in the manufacturing world and the automation that did take jobs, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we only have certain very limited historical references as to how certain technological transformations impact the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I do sympathize with that. That said, I believe, and I'm not a betting person. I'm not a betting man usually, but I'd put a small sum of money that's not going to be the case. At least not, maybe not in our lifetime, but at least not in this earlier part of our working lives. I think that by the time it's going to take a long time, because even look at the 2-3 years, which doesn't feel like a long time, but I mean, for technological innovation, it's no short time. We move really fast, and you look at a lot of the problems that we had then are still problems that we have now, maybe to a lesser degree, but they're still fairly significant issues. So, anyways, getting to the heart of your question, what do we do with? How do we handle that conversation with leaders that say, hey, we need to move? I'm generally of the opinion that security teams, GRC teams shouldn't hold up operations and innovation and development without very good reasons, right? And that's like, hey, if we do this and we're not really careful about it, then we're going to be out of business in 6 months type dangerous.
Yeah.
Which, of course, right, there's always a risk to that. That said, I like to take the approach of, well, if this is a business decision, let's do everything. I'll do everything that I can. Our team will do everything that we can to make sure that the company can proceed as reasonably, securely, and safely as possible.
Yeah.
And if there's any doubt whether we can deliver on that, then that's something that the impetus is on us to escalate. All that to say, it's not our decision to say for the business we can't do this or we shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
We say this is what we could do. This is the timeline. This is how much it's going to cost. These are the people that we're going to need. And if we deliver and things don't work out, we've done our part.
Yeah.
And I'm also really averse to thinking, oh well, I did what I could type of mentality, because again, I think that's really tough, right? That's where I think it's really important to understand how the business works. How is everything going to tie together from each department, each team, each business unit? So it gives you a bit of a better perspective of reality, I guess, and what that's going to look like. So, I mean, that's where you don't overpromise, and you have to have some understanding of the technology and what the goals are. You do what you can, and then you support the changing risk, because risk changes all the time, and the needs of the company. You support that the best you can. And at the very least, regardless of what the outcome is, right, you've done your thing, you've done good communication, you've established appropriate expectations, and protected against the things that you can protect against. And I think that's really, I mean, even when we're not talking AI specific, that's the best that we can do, right?
Yeah.
The way that we say is, right, if you're not doing the basics, then you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna have a lot more emergencies and issues. But if you're doing the basics and you're doing your best to mature and give as much reasonable protection as you can with the resources you have available, if a nation state wants to get you, if they really want to get you, they're going to get you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know some people disagree about that, but that's my perspective, right? There's no such thing as 100% secure while being able to operate a business. So we do the best we can, we learn, we improve, and we do our best until either we win and we get the best possible outcome, everything shuts down because some things just didn't work out, our calculus was wrong, or, right, the very most likely case is we just keep trying because we're in that middle state, hopefully moving towards the right and just doing more and better things.
Yes. No, it reminds me, I had this conversation recently with a director of GRC, and he said, I'm in the business of managing and mitigating risk. So while I can give answers, that is always top of mind, and that's how I approach everything. And he's like, that has fallen over into other aspects of my life, not even work. And he's like, that just goes to say, like, how much of, if you're in GRC, like, that's how much that infiltrates every other corner of your life. And I mean, hearing you speak, it's like spoken like a true GRC leader. Like, that is how everything you're saying is just like so true to that. And I agree completely. I think, you do what you can, but that's all you can do. It's day by day and, event by event and situation by situation. So segueing into our last question, I think something about AI and just the future of where we're entering right now. A lot of buzzwords are going on, a lot of jargon, a lot of noise seems to be everywhere when talking about AI adoption. And a lot of it is this fear of, oh my God, if we're not doing it, somebody else will. And then it's just an endless cycle of, more noise, more jargon, more buzzwords, whatever. So what practical strategies do you have to keep security teams, agile, adaptable, but also focused on the actual problem and the actual task, and kind of not getting bogged down with all of this AI craziness that is kind of starting to creep in? And I mean, obviously, as the industry shifts, it's only going to become more of a snowball of like, oh my God, like all of this is over here. How do you keep teams focused in the problem at hand and solving the issues without getting distracted by all the AI stuff going on?
That's a really good question, and I was going to say I can only speak from hypotheticals, but that's not true. I've had a lot of really good leaders in both my previous companies where I've done, both my companies, current and present, where I've done security work. Mm-hmm. And I mean, thinking back, and I know, I don't even have to think back that far, but working at companies before I was in security, before I was in tech, that were very good leaders, and I think the principles transfer over really well.
Yeah.
I think that keeping your team focused on what most important looks like.
Yeah.
It's because everyone's going to have priorities. Everyone's going to feel, well, based on my role, based on what people are asking of me, different important is going to look different.
Yeah.
So I think it's up to the leader, and I've had very good leaders doing this, saying this is what's most important. So if people are asking you things that are going to distract you from the most important, all right, it doesn't mean that we can't do other things, but if this is going to distract you and keep you from delivering the best that you can on the most important things, bring it to me. And right, there's always the understanding, the professionalism, the kindness that goes with that. Sometimes it means, hey, we're just gonna have a discussion about rescheduling, pushing the deadline, or seeing if we can't give this to someone else that does have the bandwidth for that. That sometimes means also having a tough conversation and saying, I understand this is important, right? This is what's been defined as most important for us as well. So, right, either we're going to change what's important for us, understanding the risks that come with that, mm-hmm. or we're going to have to find another solution, right? Being willing to discuss and having that creativity. And that's right now I'm a one-person team here at Plotly, but I mean, I keep that in top of mind when people are coming to me and essentially setting the tone for the security culture, and is that we will do everything we possibly can. If it gets to the point to where we're saying no, it doesn't mean that we won't do it. It just means we might have to do it later. And I mean, the decision's already been made. I've already made the decision that when we start building out the team, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to lead them, that's what it's going to be. We're going to establish the vision together, right? I believe that it's one thing if you're meant to be setting the whole vision by yourself, but I like I said, I'm not a good engineer. I'm not a good engineer.
Yeah.
I have my skills and my beliefs, but I think that we do better when we do things together. So
Yeah.
put the vision and the culture together. Although that culture will be one of, we're doing things and we're going to be helpful, and we're not going to just do the security things and the fun, sexy hacker in the hoodie thing. We're not
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
We're going to make a good positive impact everywhere we can. That said, once we agree on what the most important things for our team are, that's what we're committed to. And if things fall onto our plate where it has to happen, that's going to be, and it distracts, and it has the potential to distract us rather from what we've determined is most important from us. That's my responsibility to handle, not the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Right? It has been determined already that regardless of how big the team gets or what that structure looks like, they will be protected from the things that aren't what we've determined are important.
Mhm.
And if that means that, right, whatever cost that comes at, that's mine to bear, not theirs. And I mean, that's not something revolutionary that I've come up with. I mean, like I said, I feel like if you were to ask a lot of other really good leaders, that's something that they would say. That's just,
Yeah.
the leaders are there to protect their team and make sure that they stay focused on the most important things. So,
Yeah. Love it. No, I think it's so true, and it stands the test of time. I mean, if you were to ask someone 10 years ago, that could still be an answer. I mean, regardless of what's happening in the industry and the new tech coming, obviously innovation happens every day, and there's a lot of fear circulating with AI, but when it comes down to it, it is just the responsibility of the team, the leader, the priorities and goals that were set, and not taking your eye off the ball when trying to achieve the best thing you can for customers and the company as a whole. So yeah, I think we are at time. I want to thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today. I think we hit a lot of fun subjects and a lot of things that people are wondering about, and you had some really good perspective. So thank you so much.
thank you, Melissa.
Great.
Thanks so much for having me and for everyone for watching and for participating. Love to chat with you in the comments anytime.
Yep. Thank you.